Hey there, how you doing? We have reached the episode 2 of our story trip to Empalado, a story that took place in the 50s in the countryside of Paraguay, South America. It's a wonderful love story. My name is Jorge Israel. Welcome to Sementio Channel. You come with me and let's watch it.
Sementio.
In the last episode, Don Negro, Mr. Black, tried to get closer to the relatives of Azucena in order to put his plan into action. The plan of being present at the 15th birthday party of his beloved. But it wouldn't be easy, so that he had to come up with different alternatives so that all of them together could make a difference. And so today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of those alternative plans of Mr. Black. It's an adventure that seems to have nothing to do with the main plan, but it's quite the opposite. It has everything to do with it. It's something that took place on June 20, 1957 in the city of Santa Elena, Paraguay. This date, for those who live there or nearby, turns out to be a special date. And of course, something quite interesting happened on that very day. Therefore, that's exactly what will be covered in today's episode. So, let me go ahead and come with me one more time. Let's go back a bit in time and explain exactly how the Party Crashers plan got started. How Mr. Black's plan began with the aim of conquering all of Azucena's relatives. Yes, let's go back even further in time, precisely before that moment in which Mr. Black gave some thoroughly studied gifts to Azucena's grumpy uncles, already mentioned previously. The thing is, a little more than 3 months before Azucena turned 15, a very interesting event involving Azucena herself took place in the city. It was the middle of the year and, as always, the Club Atlético Santa Elena Anniversaries Ball would be held. The event of the club, founded on 1935, was quite important for the city, attracting people from all over the region and even from Asunción, the capital, relatively far away. Hundreds of people attended the largest gala ball in the region, which had 2 orchestras that played until dawn. All the authorities and prominent people used to make an extra effort to show up, given the social projection that the event provided. But the most important thing was the joy the party used to bring to those present at the event, always making people want to return the following year. In order to celebrate that festivity, each year 8 girls were always chosen for a ball queen contest during the event. As a general rule, it was mandatory that their age be between 15 and 18 years old, with no exceptions. However, on the very day of the ball, one of the participants fell ill. The president of the club, Mr. Lelis, uncle in whose house Azucena was now living, could not solve the problem since they were not finding another girl who was willing to participate and who, furthermore, still had the right clothes for the occasion. Then another Azucena's uncle, the police chief, went to visit the club president in order to convince him to invite their niece, Azucena, to participate. Uncle Ellis got very reluctant, but since Azucena was about to turn 15, he decided to accept the insistent suggestions of the police chief. And so, this latter rushed to invite their niece, although there were just a few hours left before the ball starts. In order to help Azucena, they decided to call a former ball queen who was already married and residing in Asunción. Therefore, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon of that same day, a policeman got on the motorcycle heading for Asunción. By the way, it was an old Harley-Davidson motorcycle, the only one in the entire region. The policeman returned 4 hours later with a beautiful queen dress, but much larger than the young Azucena's size. Well, of course, Super Aunt Celia had already been warned about all of that, and she was on hold, always with that beautiful smile on her face. While Azucena was taking a bath, Aunt Celia, with all her skill, adjusted the dress and made it even more beautiful. After trying on that elaborate costume, Azucena suddenly came to her senses and got scared because she didn't feel prepared for such daring. She was quite reluctant and, crying, she stated that she wanted to give it all up. But finally Aunt Celia, as well as the others present, convinced her to go. At 10 p.m., the 8 contestants lined up in an anteroom near the club's ballroom, just waiting for the moment to enter with their dance partners. Azucena, the last in line and also the smallest of them, was scared, but clinging to the words of those who encouraged her. At that moment, she also didn't know if she would have a pair for her when she entered the hall. But she held her ground despite all the pressure. Unfortunately, that firmness of hers didn't last long. No. When she looked at the young men who would be the girls' partners, she saw Mr. Black among them, still adjusting his jacket, preparing to enter with one of those beautiful contestants. Poor thing! Azucena burst into tears when she saw that her beloved seemed to make fun of her. Why hadn't he warned her? She thought, feeling a great disappointment.
Oh, what happened? What was Mr. Black doing there? Come on! Don't you judge him, don't judge. Wait a little bit. I will show you why. Let's go.
And once again, Azucena decided to give up everything. But taking into account that presenting 8 contestants used to be an indisputable tradition of the club, all of Azucena's uncles rushed to help her in order to prevent her from giving up. Mr. Black tried to get closer in vain, because a legion of her uncles and cousins stopped him from doing that, as they realized the confusion had to do exactly with the beast, as they used to perceive Mr. Black at that moment. Poor man, so elegant and polite, yet so different for the locals, turned into an enemy by all men only because he wanted for himself the beauty of the city. The atmosphere was agitated and the uproar left everyone confused. Mr. Black knew that if he tried to approach her so that he could speak, there would inevitably be a fight.
Despite being big,
there were a lot of jealous men at the ball, and all of them were angry. Mr. Black quickly looked for another way in order to express himself. He had to do something, and as a bold man, he did it. Let's watch it. Negrito, as people used to call him at that time, decided to write some words on a piece of paper and ask a boy to deliver it to Azucena. In the note, he explained that he had no interest in another girl other than herself, and that he was there just attending the event, trying to find the relatives of his beloved who lived in that region. But this didn't completely calm the young woman, despite the fact that she realized that her beloved was doing everything possible to get closer to her. Well, that's okay. Now it's time to clear up the misunderstanding. The thing is, the protagonist of our story, the good-looking mulatto, had a very special reason to be there and be the very partner of that girl. Oh yes, he had. Calm down, let me explain. The truth is that Mr. Black at that time was just beginning to implement his plan aimed at getting closer to all of Azucena's relatives. It was through that very ball that he planned to meet the countless family members of his beloved. And from that moment on, he wanted to win them all over, one by one. Thus, the girl with whom he had agreed to be a dance partner was, in truth, Azucena's cousin, and she had been carefully selected by him from among the 4 contestants who had asked him to be their partner during the contest. In his heart, he desperately needed to get closer to a relative of his beloved, but unfortunately, let's face it, the path he chose turned out not to be the best. But hey, hold your horses! Don't jump to conclusions so fast, because there is more! Oh yeah, for sure! Despite being naive, he was thinking quite clearly, since the plan was deeper than it seemed. Yep, follow me. He already knew the mother of his dance partner at the ball, who was another Azucena's aunt. Because whenever he could, he used to have lunch at her restaurant, famous for the best food in the region, especially bori bori. Delicious. For him, all of that was just a strategy so that he could invite all of Azucena's relatives to go with him as party crashers to her 15th birthday party. It was a delicate situation where he had to act with care, keeping everything a secret, at least with his beloved and parents. He knew he needed the presence of those Azucena's family members so that he wouldn't be rejected when he arrived at her birthday party as a party crasher. The presence of dozens of family members, the ones he would take by bus in a near future, was the invitation that would open all the doors for him. He couldn't hesitate. He was more than determined. In fact, he was obsessed. You know that when a person is lovesick, really desperate in love, they are capable of anything crazy. Don't you think so? Oh, they are. Trust me. Haven't you done that yet? Come on, it's about time. And what Mr. Black had just done, approaching Azucena's cousin to meet her relatives and invite them as party crashers in the near future, was a beautiful, elegant, and daring madness.
Yeah, as a lovesick man, he was not thinking very well. But in his own perspective, he was just trying to get closer to Azucena's relatives. Just that.
And let's face it, looking from a distance, he seemed right, don't you think so? And he would do whatever was necessary to fulfill his plan. So that's exactly what he had in mind when he decided to enter the ball with a girl other than Azucena. Looking closer, it could only end up in confusion, right?
Hey, calm down. Let love do its part, because love is absolute. It transcends everything. Love can help a naive plan not end up in something so disastrous. Let's go ahead and see how lucky in love Mr. Black is.
It was just over 3 months before Azucena's birthday, and Mr. Black not only wanted, but needed to officially invite her to be his girlfriend. And that would happen precisely on her 15th birthday party, with the help of all those Azucena's relatives he desperately wanted to get close to. His heart could no longer bear to look at his beloved from afar. And there's more. Negrito didn't even consider the possibility of another grown man trying to date his beloved. Therefore, nothing would stop him, not even the risk of selling the wrong image, as it was happening that night at the ball. But as Azucena no longer wanted to participate in the ball's queen contest, the chief of police and her uncle, a more experienced and sensible man, decided to approach and ask his niece a question, trying to keep the tradition of the 8 contestants working. "My dear niece, what can I do for you to calm you down and convince you to continue in this contest? Ask me what you want and I'll give it to you, whatever."
"Oh, Uncle, then I want to enter the room accompanied by Negrito. He has to be my partner,"
said Azucena, although she already knew he was about to enter as her cousin's pair. Okay, Azucena, I will do this for you," said her uncle. "But you go in, take a walk with the boy, and then leave him. Do you agree?" he finished.
Yes, yes, yes,"
said the young woman enthusiastically. A few minutes later, Mr. Black, smiling, lined up next to his beloved. She, a little calmer, decided to ignore the whole mess. In her heart, she felt that he had done nothing wrong and that he didn't love the other girl either. She was sure of that. She felt that as a truth from the soul. And so all the ball's queen contest candidates entered with their pairs. Azucena's cousin, of course, with the wrong boy at her side, was frowning. And so the candidates and their partners danced a single waltz and then split. Soon after, the parade of contestants for the election of Queen of the Ball began. And well, it's pretty obvious that the young Azucena won in a resounding way. At age 14, with more than twice the votes of the runner-up, she was elected Ball's Queen for the club's anniversary. Then Azucena and the 2 chosen princesses walked through the room with Mr. Black at the Queen's side.
Mr. Black, Mr. Black! Was it Luck in love, or the power of love in its splendor? As a source that talks about love and consciousness, we, on Semente Oceanio, have to tell you, there is no such a thing as luck. Luck doesn't exist. There are no coincidences. You got it? Are you sure?
There were upset faces all over the room at that moment. Jealous men, upset girls, and Sykes were everywhere. Azucena and Negrito were overflowing with joy. At last, Mr. Black's crazy plan had finally worked out more successfully than expected.
I don't know. I feel the smell of gunpowder. The smell of fight. Don't you? Let's see.
But the parade was not even fully over, and the police chief already picked up Azucena and took her home. As for her, she was beaming. That very night in the ball was, in fact, the first time the two lovebirds touched each other. But Mr. Black didn't want to stop there. No. Just pay attention. Right there at the ball, after his beloved left, he already began his pilgrimage to speak with as many Azucena's family members as he could, an action which would culminate weeks later with that meticulously studied delivery of gifts to Azucena's grumpy uncles, already mentioned previously. Well, Mr. Black was determined, resolute, and nothing and no one would stop him. And since his intentions were aligned with love on a high level, everything was adjusted so that his plan began to work. That's right, nothing and no one can compete with love, because it's the most powerful force in the universe. Try to realize that when someone deserves it, love can easily help a naive plan turn into something more than perfect. Mr. Black knew that perfectly well.
He did know that perfectly well as all those people who do what their hearts ask of them. Life will always help those who are aligned with their essence, aligned with what comes from above, which we commonly call heart.
Listening to your heart is always the most important thing in life. Unfortunately, we as humans not always remember that, isn't it? As for our rational mind, leave it, yep, because our reason should always be only a mere coadjuvant in the decision-making processes, and no more than that, never ever.
Listen to me, and listen carefully. You shouldn't make the main decisions of your life using your reason. No, you should only use your heart, the genuine feelings that come from inside. Yeah, you know that it costed me a lot in order to learn that, but it was so worth it. Oh yes, it was.
And eventually, when you allow your true heart, align with your essence, take the lead, love, which is absolute, will do any miracle. And Mr. Black knew that perfectly well.
Well, that's all for today. But I'm gonna give you an extra, since we have just talked about miracles. Yes, I'm gonna pay a special tribute to Azucena's father, who, years before, also performed a kind of a miracle, something worthy of recognition. And since we talk about consciousness here, I think it's important to honor attitudes like the one Azucena's father had in order to respect what was coming from his heart. And that's what I want to show you right now in the tribute we are paying to him. Pay attention. Yeah, it's interesting. As for me, I see you in the next episode. Bye. Ciao.
In the early 40s, Juan Cosme, who would one day become Azucena's father, then 28 years old and newly married, had bought a small plot of land in Empalado, a small village in the countryside, 24 hours on horseback from the nearest town, Santa Elena, the latter with less than 1,000 inhabitants at the time. He loved the countryside and wanted to start his life right there. A former combatant in the army, he was intrepid, brave and resolute, but he had few possessions and the meager amount of money he owned had been spent almost entirely to buy that very tiny piece of land in Empalado. It was then that life brought him a challenge disguised as a career opportunity. A friend of his, also a former military man, decided to suggest his name, Juan Cosme, for a very reasonable job offer for a young man like him in a police station located in Asunción, the capital. Juan Cosme seemed apt for the job, and also the income was substantial, arriving at the right time since he and his wife Oilda had practically no reserves at that very moment when they were just beginning their lives together. The truth is that the couple only had one cow to place on the new land they had just purchased, and their future still seemed quite uncertain. He loved his wife, he wanted to give her everything he could and even what he couldn't. But behind his military style, he sometimes felt worried. He didn't know how he was going to be able to give the world to his beloved, because that was his intention. And so, even reluctant to move to the big city, he accepted the idea. After all, his wife deserved it all, since she had bet her life on a man with no possessions, only guided by her love for him. And for all that, he was willing to sacrifice even his dream, which was to be able to someday have a ranch with lots of animals, crops, and a beautiful horse for which he already had a name, but not the money to buy it. The horse would be called Zaino. However, it turns out that one more surprise appeared in their lives. The thing is, even before moving to the capital, Oilda, his wife, found out that she was pregnant. And look, she was pregnant with a child who would be none other than Azucena herself, one of the protagonists of our story. At that time, young Juan Cosme had a real epiphany. Yeah, he realized that he didn't want to create such a child in the big city. In fact, he was sure of it. He also realized that his thoughts were clearer and that he himself had definitely not respected his heart by taking that job. He realized that the feeling of freedom for him was too important to be renounced, and also that he would not accept being once more under a military-style command, like the one he would probably face in that police station. It was then that he took a strong stand against leaving the small village of Empalado. As for young Wilda, she used to like the big city, and that's why she resisted a lot until the 5th month of pregnancy, eventually resigning herself and better accepting the idea of staying in that tiny town in the middle of nowhere. And so the couple's life began in a very hard way. But since they were acting in line with their essences, with their hearts, it's obvious that life would reward them. Therefore, their luck started to change when they finally got a few more cows as gifts given by relatives who were very compassionate about the difficulties they were going through. Years later, Juan Cosme eventually ended up thriving in that place, becoming one of the most successful men of that humble region, being the owner of several small businesses, having even conquered the long-awaited farm after buying more land. But the moral of the story is the following. It's possible that Azucena would never have met Mr. Black if it hadn't been for Juan Cosme's decision of listening to his heart and remaining in the middle of nowhere, almost without money. He was able to respect what his heart asked of him, as if his intuition had traveled years ahead and warned him about the importance of staying in that far and isolated corner of the world, so that one day he could come to know his good-looking adventurer, party-goer son-in-law, the young man who would, years later, give him, in the very day he would arrive by bus to Empalado, precisely the gift he dreamed of most, the colt Sino. Come on, Mr. Black was a playful young man. But what a smart man, isn't it?
Hi, just a second. I returned for you. Yes, just to tell you. Listen to your heart. Yes, and later pay the price of following it. Yes, it will always pay off, even if at first, in the human perspective, it may not seem like that, but I can assure you, in the long run, it will always pay off, because the feelings that come from your heart transcend time and space, and they are always trying to bring you the best outcomes in your life. Even if you don't see them, pay the price. I paid. Yes, and I can assure you, it was worth it. Bye. See you.
Ciao.
Una sombra grande